Well, our last speaker for this session is Dr. Rivka Gersht of Tel Aviv University. Rivka Gersht is an historian of Greek, Etruscan, and Roman art. She is the editor of the Zlotia Museum Book of the Antiquities of Caesarea Maritima, and the author of many chapters and articles dealing with freestanding sculptures, reliefs, architectural members, and wall and floor mosaics. Since her retirement in 2020, Dr. Gersht delivered for publication her reports of the sculpture, architectural members, and mosaics uncovered in 3 different excavations conducted at Caesarea between 1992 and 2018. Together with Peter Gendelman, who is also present here, she is now preparing for publication a book on the Caesarea marble tabletops and table supports. The title of her talk is Between Caesarea Maritima and the Roman Emperors as Manifested by Archaeological Findings. Rikki, please.
Apart from what the historical text can tell about the interrelationships between Caesarea and the Roman emperors, the architectural remains, the sculpture, the coins, and the inscriptions, which ancient historians made no reference to, reveal ample of interesting data. By surveying the material, it becomes clear that beneficia, honoraria, fidelitas, and pietas were essential factors in the Caesarea and Rome relationships. The most detailed examples known, both literal and archaeological, go back to the foundation of Caesarea. After King Herod expressed loyalty to Octavian in the wake of Actium, Caesar conferred honors upon him and annexed to his kingdom a number of sites, among them Stratos Tower, the Hellenistic settlement that preceded Roman Caesarea. Herod called the new city he built Caesarea, after the emperor, and to the harbor he gave the name Sebastos, which is the Greek form of the title Augustus bestowed upon Octavian by the Senate in 27 BC. Apart from the general outlines of Herod's master plan, very little survived from the Herodian city monuments. The theater was rebuilt, probably under Hadrian's reign, and is claimed to be renovated under the Antonine or Severan dynasty. Likewise, the Circus underwent renovations and modifications from the Julio-Claudians till the facility ceased to function. The inauguration festival of the new city in honor of Augustus, which included musical contests, horse races, athletic exercises, gladiatorial combats, and hunting, must have taken place in the theater and the adjacent Herodian Circus. Josephus notes that Augustus bestowed Herod with equipment for the event, and that together with the treasures given by Livia, the value of the presents sent from Rome reached the sum of 500 talents. It is enticing to presume that the relief which the fragment on the screen belonged to, top left corner, was among the presents sent to Herod. The reconstruction of the relief was made possible by similar reliefs in the Louvre, Dresden, and Berlin. The one from Berlin is on the lower left corner. These reliefs from the Louvre, Dresden, and Berlin were interpreted as allegory, a glorification of Octavian's victory over Antony and Cleopatra at Actium, in analogy to the Athenian victory over the Persians at Salamis. In the reliefs, however, the link between these two battles, Actium and Salamis, is not at all obvious. In the chapter on the sculpture for the Caesarea Circus, published in 2015, I suggested that the relief corresponds with the prophetic ekphasis of Aeneas' shield in Virgil's Aeneid, 8th book. By reading Virgil's Aquasis, it becomes clear that the depiction on the relief is not allegorical, but a visual panegyric on Augustus, the hero of Actium, and on Aeneas, his ancestor. The shield behind the column can be interpreted as both Aeneas' shield and Augustus Clippeus Virtutis, a symbol of the virtues of the emperor and his ancestor. The Palladium, a symbol of Rome's eternity and of the long-lasting Salus Publica, is the one brought to Rome from Troy by Aeneas, at least according to one version of the myth. In Virgil, Athena, Minerva, Venus, Neptune, Apollo, Mars, and Bellona take an active part in the Actian victory. Like Athena, Minerva, the other deities are symbolically hinted in the relief. Venus, Augustus' ancestress, by Aeneas, Neptune by the stern, Apollo, Augustus' father, by the serpent, and Mars and Bellona, the war deities, by the columna bellica, on top of which the Palladium is mounted. The depiction of victory feeding the serpent may be interpreted as the fulfillment of the duty of pietas toward these deities. Such reading places the relief in line with the visual Augustan propaganda. Additional references to Augustan propaganda as part of Herod's manifestation of fidelitas and pietas were found in the temenos of the Augusteum, the temple of Augustus and Dea Roma, wherein Herod placed a statue of Augustus in the guise of Zeus Olympios and of Dea Roma in the guise of Hera of Argos. The depiction of Roma as Hera instead of as Athena was meant to allude to the equation between Livia and Hera, which is well echoed in coins and inscriptions from various sides of the empire. The statues, those of Augustus and Roma, did not survive, but the temenos yielded a fragmentary relief of the head of one of Augustus' grandsons and adopted sons, either Gaius or Lucius Caesar. It is unknown who else was depicted in the relief, nor are the circumstances it was integrated into the temenos. It could have related to any event in the two brothers' lives, starting with the receiving of the toga virilis and closing with their untimely death. Whatever the event was, the tribute was addressed to the emperor either by Herod or by his successors. By adding members of the imperial family to the decorative program of the temple, the Caesareans reinforced their relationship with Rome and promised their salus as provided by the divine members of the imperial family and their protective deities. The headless statue of Livia, holding a double cornucopia, found in one of the northern vaults of the temple platform, probably fell down from the temenos when the vault collapsed. The earliest examples of Livia holding a single or double cornucopia are dated to the late Augustan or Tiberian reign. If not in the late Augustan period, the Caesarea image could be added to the temenos at the time when Pontius Pilatus dedicated the Tibereum, whatever this building was, or at any time from the deification of Livia in 41-42 to the end of Claudius' reign. In 44, a few days before his death, Herod Agrippa held games in honor of Claudius, his benefactor, who endowed him with vast territories and declared him an ally. Jesters recalling Augustus' bestowals upon Herod. It was perhaps under the circumstances leading up to these games that Herod Agrippa also placed within the precinct of the temple a statue of the emperor's grandmother, Livia, whom Claudius deified in 42. Such token of loyalty was undoubtedly no less appreciated than the games. In the second half of the 1st century, under Nero's principate, the imperial imagery at the Temenos was enriched with additional images of members of the imperial family, this time at sea level. 3 statues were placed within the niches of the Nymphaeum at the northwestern corner of the Temenos, in front of a painted brownish lattice fence and oleander garden. 2 headless statues survived. The female figure, either of Agrippina or Livia, was found in front of the northern niche. The male, with globe and cornucopia, whom I offered to identify as the posthumous Claudius, was found next to the southern niche. Its dimensions, however, fit the central niche more. In 54, Nero deified Claudius, his adoptive father. This occurred 10 years after the Caesareans honored Claudius with games and probably also with the statue of Livia. And 4 years after, the cult of the Genius Augusti was integrated into the state cults of Rome. Claudius' death and deification provided the Caesareans with the opportunity to honor him once again, this time with his posthumous image, as a nude Genius with globe and cornucopia at his right leg. Both emblems, globe and cornucopia, signify complete dominion and prosperity from which also the Caesareans benefited. The headless female statue in the guise of Hygieia, Hera Juno, or Demeter Ceres, could perhaps have represented Agrippina, Nero's mother, who became the 4th wife of Claudius in 49. Agrippina was the first wife of a reigning emperor to be deified, and as Augusta and Demeter Ceres, she was honored with inscriptions and coins. Alas, no inscription mentions her as Hygieia, and no image of her can be compared to the Caesarean piece. Livia Augusta, on the other hand, is titled Hygieia at least twice in inscriptions and was frequently represented with attributes of Hera, of Demeter Ceres, and of Tyche. Whether a statue of Agrippina or of the posthumous Livia, the contribution of the Nymphaeum sculpted image to the rewarding relationships between Caesarea and the Roman imperial court remains the same. Another tribute addressed to the imperial court on behalf of the city, perhaps under Nero, is an image in relief of the fertility goddess Ceres. From Augustus and onward, Ceres was associated with the princeps, who guarantee grain supply and agricultural fertility to the whole empire under the auspice of the goddess. Only a small fragment of the relief survived. It was found in Vault Beta of the temple platform. It probably was part of the decoration of the altar, whose foundations were found at the front of the temple by the Israel Antiquities Authority expedition under the direction of Peter Gendelman and Muhammad Hatter. This altar was the place from which every public event organized by the Augustales in honor of the imperial family members started. That a collegium of 6 priests served the imperial cult at Caesarea, and that the games in honor of Augustus survived into the colony period, we learned from a dedication dating in the 1st or 2nd century. The altar, so it seems, was a small version of the Arapacis Augustae, which was ornamented, among other motifs, with a Ceres relief. However, The iconography of the Caesarea relief, which represented Keres sitting and holding a torch and wheat stalk, or patera, is different. The image recalls the depiction of Keres on the reverse of Roman and provincial coins bearing portraits of emperors on their obverse. By including Keres in the temenos ornamentation, the Caesareans expressed a clear-cut and definite solidarity with imperial propaganda. The image of the Caesarea Tyche, first represented on Nero's coins, goes one step further by combining several figures and emblems into one entity. The type shows Tyche as an Amazon, a formula used by the Romans for depictions of the aroma and of virtues. The Caesarea Tyche holds the bust of the emperor. Her right foot rests on prow of a ship, and next to her left foot is the personification of the harbor. This depiction best manifests the bonds between the Roman emperors and Caesarea Maritima. Tyche, in her triple guise as Amazon, the aroma, and virtus, protects the city and the harbor, just like the aroma protects the empire and the emperor. This type became an emblem of Caesarea as the capital city of the Roman province of Judea-Palestina, as indicated by a wall painting uncovered in a tomb at ancient Capitolias, Jordan. No Julio-Claudian emperor paid a visit to Caesarea, and only a few of the following emperors did. On July 1st, 69, while Vespasian was staying at Caesarea, he was proclaimed emperor at Alexandria by the Roman troops of Egypt. As a token of gratitude for the loyalty of the pagan Caesareans and for the hospitality of the city, which provided a base for the Roman army during the first Jewish revolt, Vespasian refounded Caesarea as a colony and granted the city with large Odeon, which he built on top of a Jewish synagogue. The Odeon, unfortunately, is not yet found, nor is the synagogue. The Caesareans, for their part, probably honored Vespasian with a statue, but this, like the Odeon, was not found. A modest honorarium can be considered the ex voto fit of Serapis, which made their appearance at Caesarea. So it seems, after Vespasian visited the oracle temple of Serapis at Alexandria in 69, where he consulted the god about the establishment of his power. Tacitus, Suetonius, and Dio Cassius report that Vespasian, as representative of Serapis, cured a blind person by anointing his eyes with his spittle, and a cripple by putting his foot on the sick organ. Even if only a propagandistic tale, the rumor spread, and soon the foot bearing the head of the god became a token of the healing qualities of Serapis, and by analogy, also with those of the emperor. Beneficia, honoraria, fidelitas, and pietas continued to be the essence of the relationships between Caesarea and the Roman emperors also after the Flavians. The Caesarea founder coins of Hadrian, Antoninus Pius, Marcus Aurelius, Septimius Severus, Caracalla, and Macrinus, showing the emperor marking the boundaries of the colony. This was one way to honor the emperors and to express the city's fidelity and dutifulness. In view of the archaeological evidence, the disposition toward rewarding the city for its loyalty is noticeable during the time spent between Hadrian and the Severans. Cassius Dio declares that Hadrian visited more allied cities than any other emperor. He assisted all by bestowing water supply upon some, and upon others, harbors, grain supply, public works, money, and various honors. Under Hadrian, Caesarea achieved a new circus, an amphitheater, and a new aqueduct. All were built outside the Herodian city walls. It is true that no ancient text mentions a visit of Hadrian to Caesarea, but the number of construction projects carried out during his reign agree with Holmes' hypothesis that Hadrian must have paid a visit to the capital city en route between Syria and Egypt in the spring and early summer of 130. Inscriptions evince that the aqueduct Channel B was built by detachment of the Roman army. Such project could only be carried out at the initiative of the emperor. The same holds true regarding the Eastern Circus and the amphitheater. הלך לי לאיבוד. The Eastern Circus was partly excavated first by the Joint Expedition and later by Yosef Porat of the Israel Antiquities Authority. The remains show that the Circus was built in correspondence with Circus Maximus. The possibility that Hadrian ordered the transfer of the obelisk from Egypt to Caesarea should not be ruled out. By doing so, he equated himself to Augustus, who erected an Egyptian obelisk in Circus Maximus. The amphitheater, excavated by Peter Kendelman, is the largest in the region and one of the largest amphitheaters in the Greek East. Apart from sea battles, all other arena spectacles could be held there. How did the Caesareans express their gratitude to Hadrian? They built an Hadrianeum, just as they built the Augusteum in honor of Augustus. On the Hadrianeum, we learn from an inscription engraved on a mid-5th, early 6th century pillar. The inscription informs about the construction of a basilica, along with the revetment, mosaic floor, and the steps of the Hadrianeum. In the Hadrianeum, whose location is not yet clear, the Caesareans house a colossal porphyry statue of the emperor in the guise of Zeus Olympius. Unfortunately, the head, hands, and legs, which were likely made of marble, are not yet found. While the heads of the former emperors did not survive or still buried somewhere, the ruins of Caesarea yielded a marble head, which originally belonged to a bust of Hadrian. The original display of the bust in antiquity is unknown. Any context from private to public is possible. As for the Antonine dynasty, all we know is based on Malalas. Malalas informs that Antoninus Pius built a large thermae at Caesarea. The circumstances preceding and proceeding this beneficium are obscure. Recently, Uzi Ad and Peter Gendelman of the Israel Antiquities Authority exposed part of a large construction northeast of the port of Sebastos. It soon became clear that the excavated area is part of a large thermae. The stratigraphy confirmed the 2nd century date. It is therefore assumed that this is the thermae built by Antoninus Pius. It would have been expected that the Caesarean will honor Antoninus Pius with a statue. If they did, it will hopefully be found when the whole complex is excavated. Remains of post-Hadrianic theater were excavated about 100 meters southeast of Herod's theater. The theater was built in late 2nd or 3rd century under the Antonine or the Severan dynasty. Each of the emperors shown marking the boundaries of the colony on Caesarea coins, Antoninus Pius, Marcus Aurelius, Septimius Severus, Caracalla, Marcinus, and Elagabalus, could possibly be the benefactor. Septimius Severus should perhaps be on top of the list along with Severus Alexander, in spite of the fact that the later Severus Alexander was not shown as founder on coins, on the Caesarea coins. Septimius Severus for adding the title Felix Concordia to the previous titles of Caesarea, and Severus Alexander for granting the city the title Metropolis. For lack of more substantial evidence, the identity of the emperor will remain a mystery. To conclude, from the foundation of the city till the end of the 3rd century, the city loyalty, fidelitas, and dutifulness, pietas, toward the emperors was rewarded either by titles, by presents, or by the permission to build. The Caesareans showed their gratitude by honoring the emperors and their family with cultic and civic monuments, statues, coins issuing, inscriptions, ceremonies, and games. Beneficium was answered by beneficium, loyalty by loyalty, dutifulness by dutifulness, honor by honor. Unfortunately, too often the information available is partial, thus getting a full picture is difficult. Thank you very much, audience and organizers. As for you, dear Ben, in appreciation and with gratitude, best wishes with all my heart for your 80th birthday and for many more to come.